We're picking up where we left off in the Psalms. Going to skip a few here. We left off with just a general look at Psalm 10, and I'd like to go to Psalm 14, and it starts out with a great beginning. The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt. They have committed abominable deeds. There is no one who does good. And so here we go. Someone said that, um, Atheist Day. There's a day in the calendar, Atheist Day. It's April 1st. The fool has said in his heart, April Fool's Day. The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. That's Atheist Day, it sounds like. So, and it really is foolish if we look at the wonders, and even in the Psalms, we see that a little later on, Psalm 19 and some of the others that talk about the wonders in the heavens and God displays himself and all of these things. And if we look, throughout the scriptures, just how it all fits together in the way that, as we've looked, as we've gone through this study, how God shows us in types and pictures and stories, things that are going to happen way in the future. And it's like, how can you believe there's not a God? It's only the fool who said in his heart, there is no God. As we go on, chapter 15, Psalm 15, it's one who wants to draw near to the Lord, and it's a great psalm. It's kind of the same thing. A lot of it is very similar to Psalm 24. O Lord, who may abide in thy tent? Who may dwell in thy holy hill? In fact, some of it is just the same. He who walks with integrity and works righteousness and speaks truth in his heart. He does not slander with his tongue. He nor does evil to his neighbor, nor takes up a reproach against his friend, in whose eyes a reprobate is displeased. What it's talking about, this is really who goes to the holy hill, who abides in his tent? Someone of true character, who has the character of God, who it says, who speaks truth in his heart, and who walks in his integrity. I think one of the key verses there that always has stood with me, sometimes to my regret, in verse 4 says, in whose eyes a reprobate is despised, but who honors those who fear the Lord. And then it says this, he swears to his own hurt and does not change. Ouch. You give that promise about something, and you're going to do it, and all of a sudden all your circumstances change, and this is really going to cost you something now. At first it didn't look, but you gave your word. It says, who's going to abide in his holy hill? Who's going to dwell in his tent? He who swears to his own hurt, but does not change. And so, I think the key is looking at those that really, and that's kind of saying, who's going to dwell in his tent? Who's going to abide in his holy hill? It's like, who's going to get close? Who's the Lord going to feel comfortable with? This is the kind of character that the Lord feels comfortable with. And one who would swear to his own hurt, who makes a promise, says, I'm going to do this, and then all of a sudden, it's going to really cost him something. But even though it's going to cost him something, he said, I promised. I got to go through with that. And that's the kind of character that the Lord looks through. Shown to us real clearly there in Psalm 15. In Psalm 18, wow, this is a long one. It's a recap of kind of history. If you want to, there's a few chapters in the Bible that are really good if you just want a quick history of what's going on. Psalm 18 is one of them, when it talks about all the things the Lord has done. I mean, you can go to, in the New Testament, it's Acts chapter 7, I believe, when Stephen is stoned. And Stephen just tells everything that the history of all that's happened in Jewish life. Well, this Psalm 18 does some of those things too. And so if you want a quick history, go to Psalm 18. Psalm 19, I mentioned that, is really one of my favorites, and it talks about the heavens are telling of the glory of God, their expanses declaring the work of his hands. Louis Giglio does a real good video, if you want to Google a Louis Giglio and look up Louis Giglio, and he talks about Psalm 19 and just how the heavens declare the glory of God, all the things that they're speaking, everything that the heavens are really saying to us, and it's amazing. There was a good video on that on the Truth Project that the Focus on the Family put out, talking about Psalm 19 and how all of what God's created is really speaking back to us. And there's some of my favorite stuff is in this psalm. In verse 7, it says, the law of the Lord is perfect, restoring the soul. And it says, what that would say is restoring the soul. The law of the Lord is perfect, turning back the soul, turning it back, restoring it. Sometimes we get astray and we can look at the law of the Lord. I can read through Leviticus and say, man, that is so good. And what the law does is it shows us what perfection is, what holiness is, what righteousness is, and a lot of times we see it and our hearts are sensitive to the Lord, our hearts turn back. The law of the Lord is perfect, restoring the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. So once again, that's kind of saying the same thing Psalm 1 said. If we meditate in his law, man, we're gonna know so much. We're gonna be, here it says, the testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple. And later in the Psalms, in Psalm 119, it says, because I've meditated on your statutes and your law, it says, I'm smarter than my teachers. You know, and so there's all these keys that are in there, and very few people ever take up the challenge of these to actually do them. Who's going to meditate on the law day and night? Who's going to meditate on these things so that you become even wiser than your instructors, your teachers? And it's all in there. Is the Lord true in that? Well, try it. Give it a try. You know, Jesus said, if you'll walk in my ways, then you'll be truly disciples of mine, and you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. So it's like, but first it's walking in his ways. If you'll do that, you're truly disciples of mine, and then you will know the truth. So how will you know about that meditation, you know, giving you prosperity and success and everything you do? Try it. I remember hearing a man that did conferences in the United States. He learned a lot of his stuff from dealing with youth, and then he took this ministry to Russia. My father actually worked for him. My dad, after he retired, he worked for him for a little while, and his name was Bill Gothard. And his testimony, I don't know when he was young, but he said he was such a bad student and so poor in school. His sisters would kind of like, when he was coming to high school, like, oh no, Billy's going to be in high school. No, that's what an embarrassment, you know. But he got a hold of this. He had, like, I think all the Proverbs memorized. He had most of the New Testament, a lot of, you know, Psalms. He had so much memorized, and he'd meditate on it. And what God did in his life, as far as teaching and prosperity of success, that meaning prosperity means success in what he did, it was just so amazing of what God did when he began to just take him at his word and decide, okay, well, I'm going to try that. I'm going to try and memorize that. And then, because we can't really meditate on something unless, you know, we memorize it, because otherwise, well, you're like, well, what was that again? And how can you meditate on something you don't even know? So usually memorizing it in order to go over and over is important. Here, I'm spending a lot of time on Psalm 19, but going back to, it says, the fear of the Lord in verse 9 is clean, enduring forever. You know, it seems like when the fear of the Lord is there really is a cleanness. You know, if the fear of the Lord is there, you don't even toy with evil. And there's a setting where, you know, if you were sitting in the Lord's presence, the Lord was sitting on his throne right in front of you as king, that's a fearful setting. You don't think about trying to get away with something right then. And so when the fear of the Lord is there, it's clean, enduring forever. It says the judgments of the Lord are true and they are righteous altogether. Then verse 10 says this, they are more desirable than gold, yes, than much fine gold, sweeter also than honey, and the drippings of the honeycomb. Moreover, by them thy servant is warned, in keeping of them there's great reward. So we know of the more desirable than gold and sweet like the honey, but what is he talking about? He's talking about judgments. It says the judgments are more desirable than gold. Well, what does a judgment do? A judgment separates the good and the evil. It's a defining thing in your life, and judgments are sweet like honey. When they come and we see them, we say, oh yeah, my heart was really straying, but now I see what the Lord wants, and we pursue the Lord, and it's sweet. And it's more desirable than gold. It's because it lasts longer than gold is last. It's an eternal thing that happens in us when his judgments come and separate the good and the evil in us, and we lean towards him. So Psalm 19, wonderful place to sit for a while and go through Psalm 19. In Psalm 20, a prayer for others. May the Lord answer you in the day of trouble. May the name of God of Jacob set you securely on high. May he send you help from the sanctuary and support you from Zion. May he remember all your meal offerings. So, and so it's just kind of a psalm of compassion and prayer for other people. So there's like in these psalms, there's just like anything you're looking for, any prayer you need to pray, any desire in your heart, any complaint, like I said, any whining that you have, you can go to the Psalms, and somewhere in there you're going to find someone that you can say, hey, I can identify with that. They identify with me. And so it's really important. And we're going to continue in the Psalms for a few more sessions.